Hello, everybody. My name is Mike Schill. I am the Director of Marketing and Business Development for Advantage Industries. We are a cybersecurity-focused managed IT company located in the heart of Maryland, in Columbia, Maryland. And I am very excited today for this first in a three-part series about what the future of business for the Mid-Atlantic marketplace is going to look like in 2022. And we are starting with something that's very near and dear to my heart, which is the government contracting industry. And gosh, I could not have picked better people to talk to today. We have David Powell, who is the Executive Director of the Federal Business Council. David, welcome. So glad to have you on the show today.
Thanks, Mike. Glad to be here.
And not to be outdone, we have the one, the only, the true Gloria Larkin, President and CEO of Target Gov. Gloria, it is wonderful to see your face again today.
Always a delight. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. And batting cleanup, our power hitter, the newest one on deck, Courtney Fairchild. Courtney, President and CEO of Global Services, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thanks for including me. This is going to be fun.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree with you. Now, I have talked to each and every one of you in the last few months about Advantage Industries, our role with government contractors. We are very passionate about getting every contractor ready for CMMC sooner rather than later. And the technology landscape has certainly become more muddy instead of clearer over the last 6 months. And so that might get sprinkled in today, just full warning. I won't go full nerd on you because I know that's not the space any of you want to live in. But I am keenly interested in the government contracting space has some real challenges facing them in 2022. And you three really do have your pulse on what's going on in the industries. David and I were just talking in the green room about what's going on with the DoD, and Gloria, you and I have had this conversation numerous occasions. Courtney, you and I, it was the first thing we talked about. So I'm going to start it there. David, if there's a trend, if there's a vibe, because you said you had an event in November, what was the trend or the vibe that you're seeing from government contractors? Then Gloria and Courtney, I'll ask you to chime in and build upon the things that David has given us so far.
Sure. And Mike, it's great to be here, and I'm glad to be here with Gloria and Courtney, who I know and respect and have worked with for many years. So thanks for having me. The trend that I'm seeing is that people want to get back to being in person. They want to get back to being at events, face-to-face, driving engagement, driving relationships, and really building their business in a face-to-face environment. And there's a pent-up demand, I believe, for that. And whenever we offer an event face-to-face, we do see a tremendous amount of interest, and that seems to be where things are. Now, having said that, the hybrid component, the virtual component, seems to be with us for a while. And as you know, we produce events for the government customer, so for government agencies, and we bring industry into the events to provide content, help them understand ways to do government better and improve on what they're doing, and also create competition, create awareness, and things like that. Events are essential to how the government does business, which is supported by a lot of different surveys and a lot of different studies. But the way that people are attending events has morphed, and that's really the trend. We've stayed right on top of it. We've done about 85, maybe 90 virtual events in the past 12 months this year, and it's a popular channel. We had an event a week ago with one of our large government clients with 4,000 attendees, and it was very popular, very well attended, very, very popular. But I still think that the trend, as you asked, is the demand to be in person, and hopefully we'll get back to that really soon.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's been fun for me to get in front of people and shake hands and give hugs and be able to engage one-on-one like that as well. Gloria, I've got to know your industry's moving. A shameless self-promotion for the Mike and Allison After Hours podcast. Gloria was a guest with me a couple months back and just knocked it out of the park. So we got to talk a lot about what you're doing for your clients, but what are you seeing from your perspective that is going on in the industry? What are sort of the hot buttons that your customers are talking to you about?
Well, I've identified 4, and what David started with is a key issue. This is an event-heavy marketplace. If you're not determining how you can create or engender relationships, you're going to be left in the dust. So whatever vehicle is used, whether it's in-person events or the virtual events, our clients are becoming very adept at maneuvering through all of the different types of events in order to build relationships. So with COVID being ever present, whatever variant is out at this particular
We're going to run
point
out
in
of Greek
time,
letters.
yes, and who knows where we'll go from there. But the point is, it will be with us
Yeah.
for a long, long time. So let's figure out a way to do business, win contracts, and succeed, because one of the other areas is the government is spending more than it's ever spent before. $750 billion, I believe, at last fiscal year, and we just see it increasing. And this is just with contractors. So the fact that the government has that market and it's increasing small business goals dramatically over now into through the next 5 years. So COVID, increasing revenue, increasing small business goals, contract vehicles. Courtney, oh my goodness, she can tell us all about the contract vehicles world. And then last but not least, artificial intelligence. We'll be happy to chat about that in the next few minutes.
Yeah, let's definitely circle back to that, because you and I had a fascinating conversation about that, and I would love our audience to hear it. So Courtney, Gloria said the magic word. She said contract vehicles,
Yeah.
and there's a perception in the United States that our government spends money randomly. That might be the nicest way to put it. And some of that criticism certainly is fair. Yeah, I'm not going to turn this into a show about politics, but I will say that a lot of that uptick in spending is intentional, and it's for good reasons. I know in my space, the CMMC world, the government, the DoD world, they're trying to make it safer so that they can protect the country. That's one of the big goals about it. So, let's hear a little bit from the contract vehicle standpoint. What are the things that you're seeing on the front lines as a professional there?
Yeah, so as you know, Global Services helps companies manage, write, and win proposals. And what I have seen over the last year, specifically due to COVID, and you're going to continue to see the trend, is that we have less acquisition professionals. As the baby boomers have left, we have fewer and fewer certified acquisition professionals throughout the federal government. And there's a real need, as Gloria said, to spend more dollars. So how do we spend more with less in terms of the types of resources that we have as the federal government? And that's typically to use existing contract vehicles, things that are already in place, make for easier procurement. And you've seen a huge uptick in the GSA multiple award schedule as they consolidated all of those vehicles, and GSA is coming out with Polaris. In early January, they're going to come out with Services Mac towards the end of the year as well. And other agencies like NIH with CIOSP 4 and other types of vehicles. So the idea is, how can we do more with less? And sometimes an existing contract vehicle is just that. When Gloria tells you more about the AI, you're going to see why the multiple award schedule is taking off at an even greater rate as well. We saw the spend go up by already $3 billion. So there's definitely a lot more flowing through those vehicles, which makes everyone want to jump on them. I will make the caveat that getting on any one of those vehicles doesn't guarantee you $1 of business. And if you don't work with someone like Gloria or doing your job over like at FBC, to do your proactive business development, to do your capture, you will win $0, whether you've won that master contract vehicle or not. So we can help you get it if you're qualified. That does not mean you'll win a thing. And I always try to stress that, because You have to know how your specific targeted customer buys. How do they buy? And will it be used? Because if you get the wrong vehicle for the wrong agency, it will do you no good.
Yeah, I love what you said there, and I want to pull two things out of it. First, the notion of the skills gap. You know, we have this en masse retirement of the boomers that just said, you know what, I've had enough. COVID was the final straw. I'm moving to Bermuda. I'm gonna sip coconut drinks on the beach and put my feet up. I don't want to do this anymore. And then by contrast, you have all of these young college professionals that are desperate to start implementing the things that they've spent 4 or 6 or even 8 years in a university system to learn. And you hear this paradigm that all these jobs are available. Two, there's nobody to hire. And I think what that requires, because, and I can say that from my company's experience, because we've started to do this. And Warren Buffett was the first person to say this, that he hires on character.
Mhm.
It's because as long as character's there, you can train the other aspects of it. So maybe somebody doesn't have 5, 10, 15 years of experience
Right.
with what you're looking for. And I'm going to take it a step further, is that character is critical. It's the thing we interview most about at Advantage when we go to hire our staff. But it's culture. And I think
Mhm.
that's a buzzword that a lot of large enterprise level companies love to talk about, but I don't think most hiring managers really get, hey, when we hire for culture, we're looking for a certain type of person. And now you need to have the requisite background, but this notion of, well, I want, 5 years experience, 10 years of experience, 15 years experience. Here's the thing. If you've been at it for a year, you probably know how to do the job competently. And the additional years are just going to build on value. But for you to disregard people for a short period of tenure, I think that's going to be one of the changes that so many of not only the government, but the government contractors are going to start seeing. So, Gloria,
So,
that perk a thought for you?
yeah, that you're hitting home. We are definitely in the hiring mode here. And so for anyone who's listening, if you or any of your friends or relatives want to have a job in the ever-growing government contracting market, please let us know. The concepts that you're talking about, though, Mike, we actually lead with. And if our prospective employees are not a fit for our culture, we just don't go any further, because we've found through painful experiences that if it's not a cultural fit, then there's really no reason in going any further. So I'm excited about both sides of the age range, both those people that are retiring who are looking for new positions, the great resignation world, and also the new employees coming into the workforce, bringing new energy and excitement. We're interested in talking to the right people who match our culture, no matter what your level of experience is.
And Mike, could I jump on there for just one quick second? I think culture in the government marketplace as a marketplace, as a buying market, as a selling market, is also driving what you're talking about. One of the reasons that somebody is looking for the 5, 10, 15 years of experience is not necessarily the experience, it's the experience with relationships. It's what they bring with them and the trust that they bring with them. As a trust marketplace, the government is very patient, it's very selective. People like to do business with people that they know, that they like, and that they trust. And how that comes through in the hiring side is you obviously want to hire someone that matches that profile, or you're going to have to spend the time, or they're going to have to spend the time developing trust, developing relationships so that they can be effective in the marketplace. If no one knows who they are, it's going to take some time to get their feet on the ground. And I think hiring managers in our marketplace get that. They understand that finding people that fit that bill is not as easy as it might sound. Plus, there's just sort of a general relationship base that drives the decisions about who, Gloria mentioned culture in her company. We have a culture here as well, and certain types of people that we look for. It's just not easy to find someone that's been in position for 15 to 20 years that has a bank of relationships that they can bring with them and rely on. So I think that's an important thing. It's the government market culture is its own distinct animal as well.
Yeah,
Well,
Dave, I love to just go ahead, Gloria.
Along those lines, David, it's interesting because we actually work with companies embracing no background, bringing their employees, new employees into the federal marketplace and how to be successful because of the challenge you mentioned, trying to find that unicorn with that many years experience who is effective.
Wants 4 times too much salary.
Right. So our focus is entirely different on how do you bring employees who don't have that experience into this market and how to be effective. So, and events are really the key to it, because if you're attending a virtual event or you're attending an in-person event, how do they react? How do they prepare? How do they follow up? All of that becomes critical to a success. So, your events that you do, David, we always tell our clients, check the FBC calendar and find out.
Anytime. It's actually, and by the way, Gloria and Courtney both have been speakers at FBC events they've also participated. That's why we love face-to-face events, right? Because you can approach people. It's what happens away from the presentation that actually is what drives the human side of events. The connection that people can make, the chance meetings that might happen, just the general serendipity that can happen at an in-person event. Online, it's a little bit more difficult to create the connection that you would have at an in-person event, and that's part of the issue with online, unless there's a way to develop and drive engagement. So, bringing it all together, yes, we have to, I guess, train people how to do that. But Gloria, as you've said many times, the way to develop your level of trust coming in, or one of the ways, is through events, and then providing a thought leadership message, or at least putting your message out there and start to get seen, make sure that people know your name, and start to build. It's an investment that a person has to make in their own future. So, events are one of the best, if not the best, ways to do that quickly.
All right, too many good things coming out here. So I want to just a couple of things that I heard there. Dave, one of the things that you just brought up, and I think we've all experienced this, and it is amplified in the government space, is building relationships. So, fun fact, the way that I got David to pay attention to me 15 years ago-ish was twofold. One, I pointed out that we both went to UMBC, and two, I offered to buy him a cup of coffee. Now, I know that's not always allowed, depending on what market you are talking to, but you can agree to meet someone for coffee and you can go Dutch. But that informal interaction is foundational to building strong business relationships. Having the chance to just sit in front of someone. Of course, I had an agenda. David knew I had an agenda the first time I invited him to meet with me.
That's a shock to find that out. Why didn't you tell me before now?
You just thought he liked you, right?
Yeah, I thought we were going to hang out. Come on.
But that informal environment goes such a long way. And Dave, I'm sure you see this in your events, that you have these GovCon sponsors that they pony up a lot of money to have their name premiere and have it on the banner and have it on the website, and it's on the promo slicks and it's on the tchotchkes. And then they get in front of somebody who is their ideal contact, and they just verbally vomit all over them.
Right. Well, that
It's-
comes back to, Mike, you have to, like, so what Courtney's doing is, how does the agency that you're targeting buy? How does it that they actually, what is it that they're looking for? And once they find it, how do they acquire it? And then with Gloria's training, teaching people basically how to go through the process, how to develop trust. I mean, all of those things are why companies want their logo to be out there in front and center. It's just a repetition, just good old fashioned repetition. And, as the event marketplace goes from, claustrophobic or germophobic to claustrophobic. They want to get out now.
Like
it's too trapped. I need to get out. It's important to remember that it's still a human market. We're not all Zoom, squares. There are people with objectives and goals, and also families and feelings and all that stuff behind the scenes. And selling to them doesn't just mean, hey, I've got my contract vehicle in place and I am saying the right words. It's, am I genuine? Am I someone that they want to do business with? Government contracts tend to be long-term. People want to work with people they like.
It's interesting. I think that's something, and I'm sure Gloria will attest to this as well. As clients first approach global services, they say, this opportunity is perfect for me. Can you help me manage this proposal? Right? They don't know the customer. They have no idea about their mission, their focus, anything else. They simply know that technically they can perform that work. They will lose every single time, right? No capture, no business development, and no relationship. And I don't know when or why we've given the perception that federal government marketing is not about relationships. It is just as much as anything else. You can hold that contract vehicle, you can have that particular certification, you can have any of those things and still not win because you don't have an intimate relationship with the customer. And one of the things that I've seen during COVID is people being more real. David had just said, let's be more genuine with each other. I am seeing a lot more interaction with government and our clients on just human basis. They're not answering the questions on the RFP incorrectly or, things that they shouldn't be doing, but they are talking about their families and they are talking about other things that are really making connections and allow for a better relationship and potential win down the line or for expanded work within a certain client where you are, things like that. The idea that we don't lead with our certifications, we don't lead with our size, we lead with ourselves, who we are, and our services, the varied professional services that any one of our clients would be providing. So I think you hit the nail on the head because there's just an idea of technical competence as opposed to relationship-based business development.
Yeah, so I love that, Courtney. I say this all the time. It's not either or. It's and both. You tend to find
you do have to be competent, right?
Yeah, you tend to find the successful companies are walking that middle ground there. They're doing the balancing act. And it's the unsuccessful ones that are either A, really good at selling, quote unquote, but they're not particularly technical, or they're really good at technical and they think, well, build it and they will come. And so if there's something that our audience can take away today is that's the best lesson that you can implement in 2022 is if you think you've got a bunch of really sharp minds, all right, well, let's start focusing on the EQ side of the business. People that really can empathize with, because I never did pure government contracting professionally in sales. I did some sled work, so I know enough to be dangerous. And I know that dynamic, you could walk into a room and there are literally 5 people on the decision panel. And if you don't know those people and you don't know their tendencies, as you said, Courtney, you're dead in the water there. You can't, it's not enough to know that the DoD needs a widget that you can produce at, 5 cents per unit. That's great. It's wonderful. I'm sure they'll be thrilled with that. But it's got to be about the cadence of, well, how does this entity operate? And Gloria, you said something
Well,
brilliant on our podcast that it's almost come to like search engine optimization, keyword optimization in your space, right?
Well, it not almost, it is absolute. So in addition to this relationship building process, what's happened in the federal government is close to 50% of the decision makers in the federal government have retired out over the last few years. As of this December, it's over 50% of them are gone. But the spending is going up and up and up. So they have to spend more with fewer professionals to manage all of those contracts. So what their government is turning to is utilization of artificial intelligence tools throughout the entire procurement process. So not only do you have to be able to build relationships, but first, in order to get through the gatekeeper, you have to know how to leverage these artificial intelligence tools to be found and to be invited in to bid and invited in on RFIs, requests for information, and sources sought notices. Because if you're not being invited in, you're not even getting a seat at the table or walking through that door to build relationships. And we are at the leading edge here at Target Gov in helping companies understand what the heck is artificial intelligence in procurement. How does it affect my construction company? I'm not in IT. What do I care about artificial intelligence? It affects.
Here's a spoiler,
everyone.
everybody. Everyone's in IT now, whether you like it or not.
There you go. Whether it's security, CMMC, etc., we're all in it. But the fact is, if you're in staffing or you're engineering or laying paving or IT services, everybody is being affected by this, down to keywords and phrases that you use to describe your business. So it's an exciting time if you understand it. And it's a very convoluted, frustrating time if you don't.
And David, in your marketplace, I would think the collaboration is becoming paramount for government contractors. And certainly Gloria and Courtney, you can speak to this as well, but you've got no foot fits in every shoe, right? You've
Most of
got
the
to
time.
have
There are
you've got
size
to have
12s and size
partners.
10s. And
I fit in David's.
I'm going to
But
hold up my foot here in just a second. I'll show you.
But I think that's a big part of.
Yeah, see,
My
I told
goodness,
you.
that's a foot. All right. But I think that's so much of what FBC is trying to accomplish for government contractors is giving, yes, all right, you're getting access to government people, and that's wonderful, and that's critical. But it's almost like when people go, oh, well, I showed up to a networking event, no decision makers were there. Yeah, well, no kidding. Because it's the people that are in that room that already know the decision maker that you want to know that's going to make the difference between winning and not winning that bid, which is what Courtney was talking about. Courtney can help you to write the most brilliant and technically precise response. But if you don't have all of the pieces of the puzzle, you're going to be ignored. And that's what the FBC is about. I mean, I'm on to something here, right?
You're touching on it. I mean, every agency in government is different. Approaching it with a one size fits all approach does not work. And we all know that. I mean, at least we on this, and I think people, you realize that after a lot of trial and error, and you get to that. And it probably took us a lot longer than it would have taken anybody else to learn it. But we've been doing this for many, many years. So we finally figured it out a long time. And so individual agencies have their own way of not only buying things, but of receiving information. Individual agencies have their own culture. They have their own style, if you will, their own dynamic. And learning that is just as important as knowing how they buy. So knowing the buying instruments that an agency uses, knowing the culture, knowing how to approach the management structure or the program structure within an agency is just as important as knowing what you sell. I mean, there's an important weaving together of all of these things. Every agency event that we do is different because the agency itself is different. And so if someone wants to engage with that agency, there are many ways to do that. But we're always preaching, instead of brand awareness, let's build brand relationships. Let's connect, figure out what agency you're actually working with or that you want to do business with. And then let's put some time and effort into that agency. It follows an agency-based marketing model, but at the same time, it's an agency-based relationship development model that really works. So, hopefully that answers some of your question, but you're right on target. There's no one way to do this. Every agency is different. And it's important to know.
You brought up something that builds upon something Gloria has said twice now because she thinks it's so gosh darn important. Is we have this group of individuals that were critical to the day-to-day functioning of government contractors that they've moved on. But that doesn't mean they're not accessible. And when you talk about building relationships, I think there's this notion of, oh, well, they don't work here anymore, so they're no longer valuable, or I can't talk to the president of my company about this. So I did a fun exercise the other day, and shame on me, it had been 2 years since I had done it, but I went through the LinkedIn profile of the president of my company. And I came up with 10 contacts that fit our criteria. And everybody listening to this, you have different criteria for what fits yours, but they fit our criteria. And I sat down with him yesterday afternoon and I said, tell me about these people. And he, one of them had a close relationship with his mother. Two of them he plays golf with on a regular basis. Another one helped him get a government contract down in Atlanta several years ago. And I said, okay, well, how many of these are doing business with us? He said, well, none of them. I said, well, have you asked them? He goes, well, no. And so, and I offer that because if your job is not sales, and to a varying degree, all three of us, that is our job, to a varying degree. If your job is not sales, maybe you aren't thinking like that, but that doesn't mean that the sales professionals in your organization won't get tremendous value, or your vendors or your strategic business partners. So let's use our extended family for this conversation and say, hey, you're connected to this person in this entity of the government. How well do you know? Well, he's my next door neighbor, or, she plays tennis at our country club, or whatever the connection is. But looking for those tangible. So, and David, you hinted on this, is that your events, the in-person, that's the value. So we can address some of the concerns that Gloria has brought up today by implementing those, and some of the ones that Courtney said. So, Courtney, I'm going to go back to you because you were the first one to bring these ideas up. Where do you want to spin that conversation about developing those relationships again?
Yeah, I think you're right. I've sent my staff in the past to training that's sales for technical line managers, right? I mean, the idea being that everyone in your company should be sales oriented. And that's especially true for government contractors, because you have people on site every day with those relationships. And your best chance at a next contract is within that agency with the people that are doing well, like other things. So expanding from within is often not about your BD guy or your salesperson. It may be your program manager that is your best point of contact to find out more, to do the types of information search that you need to understand what's important to your customer, right? That those guys know exactly where the hot buttons are. They know the right verbiage to put into a proposal so that you're using the right keywords. Just like David said, not every ordering agency is the same, and no proposal is the same, because you need the right words for the ordering agency. You have to convey you understand their mission and their problem. And then I would say that you need to lean on your staff, to lean in, because what's really interesting, especially technical folks, they don't tend to think of sales, just as you said. And oftentimes they're your best gateway to your next.
They're an incredible resource.
You bet.
Yes.
You bet. From all sorts of different perspectives. But that takes some training because that person might be an introvert, right? They're not typically a salesperson. They don't want to feel. I've had some people work for me. Actually, one of my favorite comments has to do with the procurement conference, which, by the way, is my homecoming week. I'm really missing it because I miss seeing hundreds of my clients, let alone the new contacts. Like it is genuinely the event that we all go to of FBCs where you can catch up with everyone in one day. It's exhausting by the end, but it's a fantastic event. But I had
Beautifully exhausting, right?
one of my employees say to me, I said, I know you don't like to, network. Would you sit at the booth with me? Because someone else was busy. And the response I got was interesting, which is, I don't mind sitting in a booth and waiting for someone to come talk to me because then I know that they're looking for the information. It's going up to a stranger in a room that I don't like. So you have to know the types of relationships and comfort levels, but there are ways to train your staff to be able to do that for sure. And I think you bring up a good point.
Yeah, I love what you said there because I I talk to college students all the time, and one of the first things I address is, well, you're a sales guy. What am I going to learn from you? I go, okay, well, statistically speaking, over 25% of you are going to be in a sales role sometime in your career, even though 97% of you never intended to do that. And I said, and the other thing is, developing a sales mentality doesn't mean becoming a salesperson, but it
Mm-hmm.
means just having some of that nuance so that you can feel comfortable talking to someone. And equally important, not pitching them, but actually genuinely talking to them and their organization and what's important to them. And I think that's something that all three of you have touched on today. So this has been a fantastic conversation today. I want to thank each of you. And specifically, I'm going to go around the horn real quick and ask you each for your parting thought, 2-3 minutes, how you'd like to wrap this up. And for our viewing audience today, David, Gloria, and Courtney's information will be included in the show notes because you're probably seeing some tremendous value from the three of them today. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. I promise each one of them can do tremendous things to help your business in 2022 and beyond. So Gloria, I'm going to have you bat lead off. I'm a big baseball fan in case y'all haven't figured out from all my metaphors today. Bat lead off for us. And, what are your parting thoughts on today's conversation?
So thanks for inviting me. And what I'd say to folks is think big. 2022 has the possibility of being your best year ever. It could be you double your income, you double your revenue, you might even add a zero onto the end. And the government contracting market in the federal space is exactly where this can happen if you plan, position, pursue in order to win contracts. So think big, and I'd love to help you.
Wonderful. Think big. That's a great takeaway. Courtney, your parting thoughts for us today. Thank you so much for today.
Thank you for having me. And it's so good to see both Gloria and David. I can't tell you how much I'm missing all of you. I'm going to add on to Gloria's and to say pivot, because in order to take part in that very huge market, often it is to position yourself in a slightly different way than you have over the last couple of years. You've got to pay attention to what is needed during COVID, be able to pivot and shift just a little bit. FBC is a great example of that, right? I mean, all your in-person events had to go to virtual. So if you don't learn how to harness what's needed today versus what you think you're the best at yesterday, I think you'll lose out on some of those dollars.
Yeah. Pivot so that you don't lose out. I think that's a great summary. Thank you, Courtney. And David, take us home, sir.
Sure. And I will say, I've worked with both Courtney and Gloria, both as a customer and also as friends and working together on programs. I feel like I've made the big time now that I'm on an interview with both of them. This is really cool. So appreciate, Mike, for you setting that you set this up, and just really great spending time with you, Gloria, and you, Courtney. And the last thing I'll say is that events, we often say when people are signing up for an event, they're not really signing up for an event. They don't want an event. They want the experience. They want the event, what the event's going to deliver for them, and what they perceive the event's going to deliver. Events create affinity, we have something in common. They create context for a message. They validate your purpose for being there. They validate the reason that you're there. So if it's cybersecurity or one other procurement, the procurement conference, small business, it brings people together around a reason and around a topic. And that allows you to start having conversations about that topic because people are there because they choose to be there. You're not interrupting their day. They're walking in they're in the event because they chose to get up and go to the event. And so it's a very effective channel for those reasons and others. I would say, back to Gloria's point about 22 being a massive potential year. I agree. There's so much that's poised to happen. It's a noisy market. There's a lot of companies competing for mind share, and to use the tools that are out there. Events are one of the tools that are out there, but there are others to make sure that you're taking part of. But if you haven't done so already, make sure you have a way for people to buy from you, a way for the government to buy from you. So what Courtney specializes in, know how government buys, the psychology of that whole process. Talk to Gloria, make sure your people are trained on it. And if you need help in connecting, talk to Mike. But if you need any help with events or if event marketing is your thing, please call FBC. We've been doing this for quite a long time, and really looking forward to seeing you all three in person really soon.
Absolutely.
Me as
Yeah,
well.
this has been an absolutely tremendous presentation today. So thank you all for your time, and for our viewing audience today. Certainly appreciate your engagement. And as I said, this is part one of a 3-part series. And coming up next, we'll be interviewing the president and CEO of 3 of the most prestigious chambers of commerce here in the Mid-Atlantic marketplace, at least in my opinion. And for this point, that's what matters. So for Gloria Larkin and Courtney Fairchild and David Powell, I am Mike Sheila, Director of Marketing and Business Development for Advantage Industries. Thank you all so much for tuning in and watching today.
Thanks. Bye, y'all.
Have a
Bye.
good day.